Your Majesty, while I would never doubt your vision for the future of our kingdom, I must insist that we focus all our efforts on repairs of the castle's fortifications before concerning ourselves with decorative design choices.
I'm not even sure Talos can make wallpaper.
Really? Darn, I was hoping he had a printer installed. Finding one when you need to print something out is always such a hassle.
When in your very short existence have you ever needed to print anything?
Well, I wrote this 500-page fanfic about me and the commander, and I wanted to print several copies out.
Couldn't you just email it to him?
Oh, I already did. I wasn't printing it out for him. I wanted to print it out to cover every square inch of Rappy's room from floor to ceiling. That way, when she's going to sleep at night, she can read about this game's one true pair no matter where she looks.
Returning to the task at hand, I'm not sure I understand Your Highness's sudden fascination with decorative wallpaper.
If we are to repair the damage caused by Indivilia and Chatterbox, then we should take this opportunity to enhance the beauty of our kingdom like never before by covering every wall with the best event lobby wallpaper in the game. This one, Last Kingdom.
Really? You think that's the best? I think you mean this one. First Aid.
How dare you question the king's design choices?
Weren't you the one saying this whole idea was silly just a minute ago?
Forget that. If this child refuses to accept the king's judgment, then I will show her the truth. Kilo, have Talos pull up records of every event lobby wallpaper. I'm going to defend the honor of my king by proving that Last Kingdom is the best.
Ugh. Talos, initiate tier list program. We'll be ranking event lobby wallpaper, which from this point on we will refer to simply as wallpaper, in the order they are listed in the event wallpaper screen. For some reason, this isn't completely in the order of release, but it is close. We'll be covering wallpapers from the first up to the most recent one as of the writing of the script, which is the Evangelion collab. By event lobby wallpaper, we mean the wallpapers under this event tab on the lobby wallpaper selection screen. This doesn't include skill cutscene or favorite item wallpapers. Rankings will be based mostly on how good a wallpaper looks in terms of detail, animation, and particle effects. Some consideration will be given for the dialogue text that appears when the lobby is clicked, like this, which we will be referring to as lines. Bonus points if those lines are voiced. Also, there are 48 of these, so we won't be spending a lot of time on any individual one.
We might as well end this contest before it even starts, because the first wallpaper ever, First Aid, is obviously the best.
Which member of Pioneer do I blame for making you so arrogant? I already know who to blame for the drinking, bug eating, and, well, you know the third thing.
I must concede the scene depicted in First Aid is iconic, and it even has multiple voiced lines from the scene, although for some reason it sounds like the microphone volume is clipping in the AED line.
Plus, the complete lack of animation on your arms is a little weird, Marion. It's also not exactly the most creative pose or background. Even with those shortcomings, it's still a fan favorite. Top of A tier.
Next is To the Ark.
Why would anyone ever set this as their lobby screen? I'm not even saying this as part of the ongoing rivalry between me and Rappy, which 50% of exports jokes rely on. Seriously, why would you want the default loading screen as your lobby wallpaper?
Plus the fact there's zero animation in this aside from the light rays in background. Rappy is literally a still PNG that just bumps up and down slightly. Her hair and clothes don't move. In fact, she doesn't even blink.
And the voice lines are just random bites from Chapter 1 that hardly fit the scene. F tier. But perhaps Rappy will be able to redeem herself in the third wallpaper on the list. What are we to you?
It's almost not even fun to attack Rappy when it's this easy.
Your childish rivalry aside, I must agree. The low-detail, overexposed background offers nothing. The lines are voiced and more interesting than the previous wallpaper, but as far as the pose, it's so bland.
Only Rappy could make flashing your butt look boring.
Somehow, despite having actual animation and more fan service than the previous wallpaper, this one will actually go even lower in F tier for its uninteresting background and lacking the iconicness of To the Ark.
Next is Absolute coming through.
The forehead queen herself looks great in this, but Emma's face looks even weirder than her default appearance, and Vesti is barely even visible.
The lines are, however, quite good, and are voiced. For Yunhua fans, this might actually be better than her skill lobby wallpaper. For everyone else, the low detail on Emma and Vesti put this in C tier. A good king knows all their subjects must be given attention. For a wallpaper called Absolute Coming Through, this fails to properly highlight the entire squad.
Now for the only wallpaper of a human. Well, probably human. There's a whole lot of questions about him. Anyway, it's entertainment, but like with a lot of E's at the front.
How does Mustang have a wallpaper, but Suin doesn't? Also, while this does have voiced lines, you can tell this was early on as the voice actor is really struggling to keep the accent. Not that Export would know anything about that.
In a game about waifus, no one is putting Mustang as their lobby wallpaper, not even the female players.
Seriously, we're not. Also, how do we get this and not shower scene Anderson? This is discrimination.
I hereby sentence this bizarre choice of wallpaper to the very bottom of F tier.
And now for the only good thing to come out of the game's first event, it's the no caller ID wallpaper.
Let this be a lesson that even the most seemingly worthless things can have a small bit of value. Very small. Very, very small.
Yes, Your Majesty, we get it. The art itself is fine. Although it's strange the background, which is low detail, didn't include the Ferris wheel that was a big part of the ending of this event. The lines by Anise and Neon are funny. C tier, for being the picture of average.
Now for some Christmas cheer with this first winter wallpaper, Rupee and Anne.
Why is that blonde woman trying to use her breasts to strangle a child?
While I'm sure many commanders would love to die by that method, returning to the substance of this wallpaper, I must say it's rather average.
The lines are fine, and voiced, which is a bonus. But this wallpaper is just so seasonal. Would any player use this for their lobby outside of the winter season? For what it is, it's fine. But there's nothing special about it except its ability to remind you of depression. C tier.
Now for the complete opposite of wholesome Christmas fun. It's D Outsiders.
One of the worst events would have one of the most uninspired wallpapers. This is barely better than Viper's default skill wallpaper, and she only has one unvoiced line.
Marion, you mustn't be so negative. Look on the bright side. Given how bad the new voice direction is for Viper, isn't it better that line remains unvoiced? Regardless, this wallpaper has sex appeal for Viper fans, and nothing else noteworthy. This goes in the bottom of C tier.
Moving on, while I'd like to think the armor I made for Snow White is great, the next wallpaper, Brand New Year, contains arguably the 3 best costumes in the game.
Oh, check out the ranking every Nikke costume from Year 1 tier list in the card above and description below. Rupee, Dala, and Yan join me in reviewing all the skins you wish you had bought from the mission passes, and now can't. ShiftUp, please do costume reruns.
Ahem, back to the wallpaper. The issue with this one is that despite having the best costumes on display, they are so far away you can't appreciate their beauty. If this was zoomed in by 50%, it would be much higher. However, the low resolution and only decent lines keep what could have been a top contender down in B tier.
Speaking of being too far away from the camera, this next wallpaper, HIGHTECH Toy, has the same issue, but even worse. I had to use Talos to zoom in just to see Maxwell.
And she's in her alternate skin, which is actually worse than her default one.
Small characters, bad costume, and only Laplace has any lines here. Truly a missed opportunity. D tier. Tell me, Chime, will any squad be able to understand the kingly values of unity and make a good combined squad wallpaper?
Yes, my king. This next wallpaper, after Valentine, is the best squad wallpaper so far.
That's kind of a low bar at this point.
This squad shot has good detail, without the strange aliasing issues the other ones had. The lines are alright, and the background isn't anything special. Low B tier, although Soda fans will luckily have a much better wallpaper coming up.
Now, Marion, we mustn't put the horse before the car.
Your Highness, it's not car, it's cart. And it's cart before the horse, not the other way around.
Yes, I knew that. I merely didn't want to spook Tron by implying we would attach a cart to her. Yes, that's it.
How did you become king?
Because, when nearly naked, I'm probably the strongest Nikke in existence. Possibly even surpassing Lilywise, if only briefly.
Oh, give me time. I think I'll test your strength in a few dozen chapters or so.
Back to the list, what do we think about this wallpaper? Bow Wow Paradise.
Much like the event, it is entirely carried by its cuteness, which isn't a bad thing, but that can only carry it so far. And again, we have an overexposed white background with no detail. C tier.
That's weird. The file for this next wallpaper should be named Sakura Blossom, but somebody renamed it to I1 Biatches.
One of these days, I will get a summer costume. I will.
Tantrums aside, this wallpaper is truly incredible. Wouldn't you say so, Your Highness?
Yes, Chime. Beautiful particle effects, an elegant pose, a lovely background, and some of the best lines of any wallpaper. It truly is a crime they are not voiced. The most recent summer event may have raised Sakura to the level of top-tier waifu, but this wallpaper should have shown she was top-tier all along. Our first S-tier.
Marion, you had best not commit any crimes against your fellow Nikkes, lest you face D in her first of 2 wallpapers. Return to darkness.
Such an epic pose, with lines just as amazing as the previous wallpaper. The overexposed low-detail center of the background does detract from the overall image. And unlike her upcoming wallpaper, this version of D is certainly lacking in the... What is that term the youth are using, Chime?
The word is gyat.
Yes. While lacking in the gyat department, this is still quite a good wallpaper. B tier.
I'm not even going to ask how you two learned that word. I'm just going to move on. From what Talos tells me, any list by export wouldn't be complete without a horrible, controversial hot take that everyone disagrees with. Talos' calculations say that's going to be this next wallpaper, Goddess Squad.
She better not rank my mommies low.
Your what?
What the fuck?
This wallpaper has such great lines. All of them voiced with each member getting a line. And as the Goddess Squad, how could it be anything but S tier?
While the Goddess Squad have long been allies of the kingdom, a king must be neutral in their judgments. And I judge this wallpaper to be terrible. It has absolutely zero animation, aside from some strange floating black particles. This is literally just a still image. It is an absolute crime that this legendary image was not animated. D tier. It is solely because of the voiced lines this does not find itself in F tier.
Not my mommies. Mommy number 4, you're the worst.
Wouldn't Crown be number 7? Since RUPEE, Neon, and Anise would be numbers 1 through 3, and Snow White, Rapunzel, and Scarlet would be 4 through 6.
Remember how I subtly threatened you the first time we were alone? This time I'm not being subtle. If you call RUPEE my mom again, I won't wait till this game's final chapter to go full Rapture Queen. I'll rip you apart right now more than Indivilia ripped apart Chime.
Marion, for threatening your fellow citizen of the kingdom, you are assigned cleaning duty for a week.
No fair.
Don't make me make it a month.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Moving on from that disaster, next is A Kiss from the Bunny Twins.
Do we even need to discuss this one? A great close-up of 2 of the most loved characters having a boob wrestling contest. Obviously S tier.
A crude but accurate summary. Continuing along, Blood for Blood.
While the lines are badass, the background kind of drags it down, even if it is appropriate.
The eyes are cool, but aside from that, it's pretty average. C tier.
Now for one that I'm sure is worth royal attention, Salutary Summer.
Indeed, summer wallpapers are always destined to be top tier, and getting to see Mary's eyes is a special treat. The lines play into her motherly nature, and the background is nice, if a little generic.
Well, Neon is like my best friend. Considering how many of these lists we've done together, I have to admit this probably would have been better without her in it. Still, there's no denying it's a great wallpaper. A tier.
Tell me, Marion, as one whose entire story relies on depression, how much value does sadness add to something?
Well, this is Nikke, so I'd say a lot.
You'd think, but this wallpaper, Nya Nya Paradise, proves otherwise. From the depressing lines, to the generic, overexposed sky, to the strangely drawn cat eyes, the only purpose of this lobby screen is to remind you why Prozac exists. D tier.
Ouch. Well, this next one, Ocean's Treasure, doesn't fare much better. Although at least this one has a real sky instead of just an overexposed white void, even if it does include a weirdly animated cloud that waves around like a tree in the wind.
And it contains a paltry single line, and a boring one at that. For having so little going for it, I shall place this in D tier.
We seem to be in a rut, but Aegis Squad is here to save the day.
Indeed, an amazing hero shot with great voiced lines from all the characters and beautiful particle effects and animation.
Plus, Summer Helm being covered in water doesn't hurt. This again proves summer wallpapers will always be on top. S tier.
Now let's see how ShiftUp screwed up an easy slam dunk with outer automata.
That seems pretty harsh. Sure, the lack of, well, any lines is strange since the event was voiced, so you'd think they'd at least reuse one of those lines. And 2B's butt does get a serious downgrade in this image, but you can't deny having Mir and Nikke in the same image is cool. Bottom of A tier.
Your Highness, moments ago you asked what depression was worth. Well, this wallpaper, login, proves it can actually be used to great effect. This heartbreaking image perfectly encapsulates Marciana's character. Her lines, while only numbering 2, are incredibly impactful.
And this image is what inspired Export to make Marciana's theme. It's me who failed. Check out the fan zone in the title card above and in the description below. It's guaranteed to make you cry. As for the wallpaper, easy S tier.
Staying in school, we have exciting times with Naga and happy times with Tia.
There's much that could be said about the wonderfully unique pose Naga takes, and the absolutely ridiculous pose Tia takes with her boobs on the table. And I could talk about how Tia's line really doesn't match her personality at all. But to avoid a visit from Chris Hansen, I'm just going to rank Naga at S tier and Tia at D, and quickly move on.
Of course you'd rank your new girlfriend in S tier. People joke about Liverin being a homewrecker, but you actually succeeded.
Are you insulting me?
No, I'm praising you. Please teach me your skills so I can get rid of the horrible Yakuza waifu Sakura now that she's claimed victory over the commander's heart.
Please don't do anything that would make us call the A.C.P.U, because if we do, they'll show up in an amazing pose like they did in this wallpaper. Freeze! It's the A.C.P.U.
Who breaches a room with a rocket launcher?
This wallpaper, as the kids say, hardly goes.
Your Highness, the phrase is goes hard.
Yes, I knew that. I simply didn't want Kilo to feel old by not understanding the slang of today's youth. Back to the wallpaper, Polly posing with her silenced shotgun with a laser pointer, flanked by her comrades holding questionable weapon choices for the job, truly is a, badass wallpaper. High A tier. It is at this point I must once again reaffirm that the Kingdom and Pioneer are steadfast allies. I share the same admiration and respect for the Goddess Squad that all my fellow Nikkes do for this legendary—
Oh god, you're going to insult my mommies again!
Well, technically only one of them shows up in this wallpaper. Red Ash.
Your Highness, I shall shoulder this burden for you. Why, of all the emotional and powerful CGs throughout the Red Ash event, did ShiftUp choose this bland one as the event wallpaper? Not the epic skydiving one? Or even the screaming Snow White? Look at the background of this. It's basically a blue wall. And while the lines are cute and voiced, you have to admit this was a huge missed opportunity. B tier, and that is being generous on account of its cuteness and being the Goddess Squad.
I feel like I'm lost and alone, unable to survive after this insult.
Kind of a dramatic transition to our next wallpaper, but whatever. Here's a lone survivor.
While Her Highness accurately described A.C.P.U. as being the most, quote, hardcore wallpaper, this takes a close second. The heroic lines from Tove contribute to making this an inspirational wallpaper. A tier.
And now we come to the pinnacle of wallpapers. Proof that, as a now deceased swordsman once said, women are like Voltron. The more you can hook up, the better it gets.
You people need church.
No, that's a different character.
What?
Returning to the wallpaper, how can words do it justice? So many fan-favorite characters bathing together in a hot spring. If that wasn't enough, the voiced lines are perfect. It boggles the mind how an event that was considered by many to be mediocre could have such an amazing wallpaper, while the two best events so far could have the most disappointing. Regardless, this goes at the very top of S tier.
What's even more shocking is this event had not one, but 3 wallpapers. The second, You Can Do It, MICA, is incredibly unique with its pixel art style. It even has a good voice line, although it can become repetitive if you misclick in the lobby too many times. Even with that flaw, the cute uniqueness of this puts it at the bottom of S tier.
And now the final wallpaper from this event. Sadly, to balance out greatness, there must also be terribleness. Yin and Yankee.
It's yin and yang, Your Highness.
Oh, yes, of course. My point is, this next wallpaper, Snowfall Oasis, is utterly terrible. Not only are its lines unvoiced, despite it being from a voiced event, but it has the same problem the Goddess Squad wallpaper had, where absolutely nothing is animated except some incredibly minor particle effects. F tier.
The second New Year's event wallpaper is New Year, New Sword. featuring Scarlet and her sister Rose.
I swear to Enoch Crown, if you insult one of my mommies one more time, I'm going to transform again into an even better outfit and make it another $60 gotcha skin.
You monster! Truly, I knew taking in a former heretic was a mistake. Even Indivilia wouldn't partake in such villainy.
Speaking of villainy, check out the Nikke villain tier list on the channel, linked in the title card above and description below. You won't believe who makes it into S tier. Export almost started a riot. Back to this wallpaper though. Fear not, Marion, because this is a Goddess Squad related wallpaper that is actually worth using.
I got to admit, the lines are very touching. It's an emotional goodbye from Rose to Scarlet. The background is great, as are the rose particle effects. The one issue is that the weird hugging pose, combined with almost all black armor on both characters, does make it a little hard to distinguish which parts belong to who. But even with that small nitpick, it's still a great wallpaper. A tier.
Remember how we complained about overexposed white backgrounds? Well, this is the poster child of that. Lionheart.
While yes, the background does lack in really any detail, the adorable heartfelt pose and lines from Leona to Timmy more than make up for it. B tier.
Now for Blood 2.0. It's Dirty Backyard.
An astute observation, Kilo. This has the same issues, but even worse. The background is uninteresting, and yet somehow Marianne is not enough of a focus in this one. Her lines are good, but the strange red Kaioken glow around her just doesn't work. D tier.
Next, the picture of proper etiquette. Perfect MAID.
What is with these overexposed white backgrounds serving as a substitute for actually drawing something? Bravati and Aid look fine. The voice lines are fine. Everything is just fine. C tier.
Now for a pair of my fellow nerds. It's Boons Day.
What a powerful image. The symbolism here is as clear as it is impactful. The lines tug at your heartstrings. It is perfect. S tier.
Now for one of only 2 wallpapers that could threaten the first hot spring one for its spot at the top of S tier. It's Kill the Lord.
I didn't know the ARK provided Brazilian butt lifts.
I mean, this is a game about ass, so it makes sense for the ARK to perform them.
There is no denying that this image of D may be the single greatest butt shot in the entire game. But it's not only the butt. Her pose and lines are seductive without being slutty. The cityscape background fits the mood so well. And that thong outline surely has many commanders putting this in their top 5 wallpapers. While I could easily place this at the top of S tier, I will say the voiced lines and multiple characters in the hot spring allow it to hold the crown of best wallpaper, if only by a hair.
Well, there's no way anything following that could compete, so let's see how low the next one will be in comparison. It's the ReZero collab wallpaper, Recipe for You.
An entire event about cooking, and ShiftUp makes the wallpaper show that brief scene where the characters are on an escalator shopping for ingredients. Just why?
No need to waste time, it's D tier. Although it did make me realize something. Why didn't the Chainsaw Man collab get a wallpaper?
Because some things are better left forgotten, my dear Kilo.
Well, this next one will cheer you up. It's One More Time.
That pun was terrible. Unlike this wallpaper, which is pretty cute. I mean, it's more a joke than anything, but sometimes that's good enough.
Bei's line is somewhat strange and doesn't match her expression. If anything, it appears more as if Clay is saying the line. Regardless, as a fun wallpaper, it succeeds. B tier. And now, for the glorious artwork I shall have adorn every wall of this castle, its last kingdom.
That might be a little excessive, but it definitely is an amazing wallpaper. It really looks like it could be a Nikke movie poster. You have all of the kingdom plus Pioneer facing off against the forces of evil. And the smack talk in the lines between Crown and Indivilia are great, even if they strangely aren't voiced. It does have a little of the overexposed white background thing going on, but that can be forgiven as that kind of thing fits a movie poster. Kind of strange the enemy in the very top right doesn't have any animation at all, though.
Your Highness, none would deny that this is unequivocally one of the greatest wallpapers. But must we really cover every wall with it?
If we want an S-tier kingdom, then it must look the part. And this wallpaper certainly sits near the top of S tier, unlike this next wallpaper, D.ARK Hero.
It's kind of amazing how the other wallpaper featuring Elegant Trony can be S tier. Well, this one is garbage. It's almost impressive how bad it is compared to the original. While the lines are rather heartfelt and seeing a happy Trony is always good, the entire layout of this wallpaper is confusing.
I must admit, while I understand what they were going for, with it being two separate shots combined together, the way Trony's hand crosses over ruins the image, and the return of bland backgrounds doesn't help. D tier.
The next one, Golden Coin Rush, has two floating bunny girls and voiced lines. And one of those bunny girls is Alice, a fan favorite character. Do I need to say more? S tier.
This wallpaper, Clay More, raises two important questions. One, was the joke about Clay's name being half of the word Claymore really worth naming the entire event after it? Second, how can Clay go from being introduced, put into NPC jail, and then released from NPC jail in a span of a few months, when Kay is still in NPC jail after over a year?
Both excellent questions, Your Highness. But back to the wallpaper. It is nothing special. The pose is fine. The background is again an overexposed void. And it truly is a shame Milk didn't make an appearance in this wallpaper. D tier.
We're getting near the end, and we're definitely ending strong with this next wallpaper. Beautiful shot.
Aren't you going to continue hating on Sakura? I kind of figured you'd be more negative about this one, given how it's where Sakura, with the commander.
Oh, that? I've just now learned that fans say the summer events aren't canon, so I'm fine with whatever fanfiction Sakura wants to dream up. It's nowhere near as good as my fanfiction anyway.
Not really sure how that works, but either way, this is a top-tier wallpaper. Great lines that are voiced by two great voice actresses. The background is nicely detailed, and Sakura has become a fan favorite, so any wallpaper with her swimsuit version is going to be high tier.
The one issue with this wallpaper is that the pink dolphin animation happens far too often. I understand the actual live 2D loop for this wallpaper is likely only a few seconds, but that dolphin is rather distracting. Still, this ranks near the top of S tier.
This event came with a second wallpaper. This one with a fun, unique art style. It's Aegis the Diver.
A fun little bonus, though the lack of any lines is a bit odd. Regardless, the Aegis squad is always a delight to see, especially Summer Helm's outfit. And the Dave the Diver art style is a nice touch. Top of B tier.
Talos calculates there's only 3 left. Next is Ein's wallpaper. Juvenile Days.
Thankfully, unlike the previous schoolgirl wallpapers, having either of these set as my lobby's wallpaper won't get me put on a list.
I think what Her Highness was trying to say was that this is a nice, simple wallpaper with good lines that wrap up the story. It's nothing special, but seeing the 3 friends together and happy is nice. B tier.
That happiness definitely didn't last, as this next wallpaper, Colorless, certainly is one of the more grim ones.
I think this is what Tia felt like after you stole Naga from her crown.
I did not steal her. It was completely voluntary, and I have it on good authority. Naga is actually a 9,000-year-old magical girl, or something, who definitely doesn't have a cucking fetish. Back to the wallpaper, it is certainly eye-catching. The lines reveal Tsuai's cold and determined mindset. While I wish there was a bit more animation than the simple dust and flames present in this one, the design concept alone carries this wallpaper to A tier.
And now for the triumphant end to your most magnificent and fair tier list, my king. It is the Evangelion collab wallpaper. You cannot evade.
It's fine. There really isn't much animation to this. Is it weird Pen the Penguin has the most movement of anything in this?
I think the issue is there's too much headroom. This could have been more zoomed in to allow more detail, but instead, a third of the screen is taken up by a blank sky. Admittedly, the background has an adequate amount of detail with the light rays and everything.
How an event with so many new CGs only has this one wallpaper is beyond this king's understanding. Nor do I understand the complete lack of lines from any of the myriad of characters in the wallpaper. Nevertheless, I shall issue my final, fair ruling. B tier. And with that, I shall take my leave. Chime, I leave the mission of revitalizing our castle with new decorations to you.
Of course, Your Highness.
You're not really going to cover every single wall with that Last Kingdom wallpaper, are you?
I would never defy my king's orders. However, after a big lunch and long nap, Her Highness may forget certain desires and move on to new, equally random ones. Which is to say, don't bother having Talos print out the wallpapers. I don't believe we'll be needing them.
And that's it for the tier list. Share your ideas for any future tier lists or videos.
Hit the like button. Check out the other tier lists and fan songs on the channel, and share the video around. It really helps.
And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe for more Nikke content. See you next time, Commander.
RUPEE flop, but I stay on top, cause I'm just so hot. With a drip so fine, that's a Tetris line. And a sitting pose that will blow your mind. Loved and hated by my fans, but every night I fill the stands. The name is Law, you never known defeat. Say it with me now, let's drop the beat.